Good evening, everyone. As all of you are aware, it's a sad day across the country. As it's a time of losing lives of our army officers and soldiers defending the sovereignty of this great country, we, Kashmir Journal, as a responsible entity promoting and propagating peace, would like to take this moment to tribute their holy deaths. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have two eminent speakers who needs no introduction, the former judge of the Supreme Court of India, Justice Markandey Katju sir, and Sri Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Fellow at Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies. A warm welcome to both of you, sirs. Since we have experts on board, I would like to get into the discussion in direct. Abhijit ji, I would like to open this session with you. Even though all of us are aware, could you please elaborate on what exactly happened in Galwan Valley at Ladakh and what are your views on the recent escalations?
Sure. So this has basically been triggered by Indian infrastructure building that started around May or June. Sorry, can you hear me, sir? Okay. That started around. Okay. That started around May or June of last year, 2019. And what happened was that, we have initiated massive infrastructure projects in Ladakh, Arunachal, basically across the entire China border. And this is for good reason, because, the Chinese, at least since the 90s when they liberalized, they have built up incredible infrastructure on their side of the border. When Doklam happened, I was in Tibet. And what would normally a distance that would take you about 7 to 8 hours in Ladakh, in Tibet with Chinese infrastructure, you could cover in about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. That was the kind of infrastructure that they built up out there, everything massive scale. And what the Chinese did was that this was basically a coordinated attempt at diverting attention from COVID difficulties and difficulties back home as well. So it was a lot of things all coming together at the worst possible point of time. A response to Indian infrastructure building, a response to COVID, the need to divert attention, all of it coming together. And their negotiating point was that they started intrusions. And their negotiating stance was, ki bhai dekho, you stop your infrastructure construction and we will go back and stop our intrusions. Now, see, this is unfortunately, you can never trade a tangible for an intangible. You never give up things for goodwill or peace. You've seen this. This is why the Israeli-Palestinian agreement failed. It was called Land for Peace when it was agreed to in Oslo. And how do you trade land for peace when the Palestinian Authority can't guarantee you peace? It's the same like that. You can stop infrastructure construction and they will just keep coming in. They haven't built infrastructure just naam ke vaste for anything. They've built infrastructure to enable movements, military movements, and to come in. So we said no, but we need to be very careful what the incident last night was. China never lives up to its end of the bargain, which doesn't mean that they get very violent right now. What happened yesterday was all the standard operating procedures of both sides were followed, right? Had this happened on normal planes, I mean, you can go to YouTube right now and check out fist fight or stone pelting between Indian and Chinese troops. You'll get literally hundreds of videos. This kind of, beating each other with cricket bats or baseball bats, including bats with barbed wire around them, throwing stones heavy. And, those stones are extremely sharp, jagged stones. This happens almost on a monthly basis on the India-China border. But why this was particularly serious was that this happened on a ridge. Now the ridge, this kind of a mountain ridge, it's about, say, between 3 feet would be a luxury, 3 feet wide. Now can you imagine being about 400 feet high, 400 to 700 feet over a river valley, just about 3 feet wide. 3, maybe up to 6 feet wide sometimes, but mostly about 3 feet wide. And you getting into this kind of a fist fight situation. Now, what happens is, to avoid ambushes and to protect you from avalanches, because avalanches are a real threat out here, as could ambushes, you never send one patrol. You always send one patrol up first, and then after about 30-40 minutes, you send a second patrol. So that if one gets into trouble, the other one can save it, as the case may be. So what has happened is the first patrol, something has happened. We still don't know what has happened clearly, either on the Indian side or the Chinese side. Isme trigger kya hua? Okay, why did that initial fight break out? We estimate it was between about 30 Chinese troops and about 5 to 10 Indian troops that went in the first patrol. But some kind of fighting broke out. There was an immediate radio call for help, and the second patrol of our patrol also joined in. Their patrol was much bigger. Okay, it was much bigger. It was much closer to their base camp. It was most probably in Chinese, on the Chinese side of the LAC.
So exactly what happened yet to come out or something. So the details are yet to.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of facts that are undecided as yet. And what has happened is that the Chinese made a huge tactical mistake that, you know, in a narrow valley, you can't send in about 100 troops at one time. Numbers don't matter when it's narrow. Jab log bas, you can only stand about 2 abreast, 3 abreast. 100 becomes a stampede. Okay, their weight was too much for that track. There has been a landslide. Now, they did kill some of our boys. This wouldn't have started off had somebody not gotten killed. Because the rule is that when somebody gets killed, after that, you never back off. If people get injured, you back off. But when people get killed, you never back off, because then you're enabling the other side. So what has happened is this has turned into a full-on fisticuff. Many of our troops have also been thrown off the cliff. And obviously some of their troops got thrown off, but because of the sheer weight of numbers, a landslide has happened, which was the cause for most of the Chinese casualties as well. By this time, they'd also captured some of our troops. So in the morning, we had these reports. The whole of yesterday morning, you know, it was like, look, there are about 20 of our boys missing. Then it came down to 10 boys. And then you'd call up the local army guys and say, sir, kya hua? Aapne to bola tha 20 log missing hai. They'd say, Abhijit, I've got bad news for you. We found their bodies. So, you know, all these so-called, what we thought were POWs turned out to be bodies that had basically gone down the cliffs. And those cliffs are extremely nasty. They are extremely sharp and jagged. And if you fall down, your chance of survival is almost zero.
Okay. I'll get back to you, Abhijit ji. Justice Katju sir, I happened to see one of your articles which you have detailedly written.
Speak louder.
Written about the Chinese aggression as a kind of Chinese imperialism. Sir, could you please say what are your views on that particularly? How do you feel this as a Chinese occupation or Chinese aggression, sir?
Well, I've heard Abhijit's analysis of the situation, but I would like to present my view from a totally different perspective. In my opinion, we have to go much deeper if we wish to understand the problem. For this, you have to go a bit into economics, because politics is concentrated economics. So if you want to understand politics, you have to understand the economics behind it. China calls itself a communist country, but in fact, it is capitalist. Everybody knows. Now, there are, see, when a country becomes industrialized, then at a certain stage of capitalist industrialization, there's a tendency to become imperialist, because after its industries grow to a certain extent, then it wants to acquire fresh markets overseas and cheap raw materials overseas and so on. Just like, for example, why did England come into India? Why did the British conquer India? not because they loved India, but because they wanted the markets and the raw materials in India. That is what imperialism and colonialism is: capture of markets and raw materials and cheap labor. Now, here I want to tell you that there are two types of imperialisms. One is the expanding imperialism, the other is the defensive imperialism. Let me give you an historical example. In the 1930s, the Hitler's imperialism, Nazi German imperialism, was expanding imperialism. It wanted to conquer other countries. Whereas the British and French imperialism were defensive imperialisms. They just wanted to hold on to their colonies, not that they wanted to conquer other countries. Now, expanding imperialism is much more dangerous as compared to defensive imperialism. Hitler's imperialism at that time was much more dangerous than British or French imperialism. Similarly, today, Chinese imperialism is expanding imperialism. It seeks to conquer other countries, not militarily at present, but by economic means. It has captured the markets in many countries, the raw materials, and so on. So it is much more dangerous than, say, American or European imperialism. The real danger to the world peace today is the Chinese. They are on the path of expansion, and therefore they are aggressive. They wanted to capture the markets and raw materials of other countries. Now, all that has happened in this Galwan Valley, etc., must be understood in this context, in this historical context. See, it is very easy to say, oh, this incident happened because of some misunderstanding about the border, or there was a tiff between some soldiers. So that is a superficial understanding. You have to go much deeper. And therefore, I say this problem cannot be solved by diplomatic means, far less from military means. Because, I mean, it's very easy to say, oh, this problem can be solved if we sit across a table, the Chinese on one side of the table and Indians on the other side of the table, and by negotiation, they can solve the problem. This is just like saying that that Neville Chamberlain said by discussing problems with Hitler in Munich, I have solved the problem. But that was just appeasement. Czechoslovakia was handed over to Hitler. That whets the appetite of the aggressor. So to think that you can solve this problem by diplomatic means, by just sitting across the table and talking it over, you are laboring under gross illusion. You don't understand economics. See, there are certain iron laws of economic operating. The Chinese have built up a massive industrial base, and they have got $3.2 trillion foreign exchange reserve, which is a huge amount of hot money, looking for avenues for investment. They have to seize markets, they have to seize raw materials, and therefore they have to be aggressive. You see, it is in the very nature of capital to seek avenues for profitable investment. There's an iron law of economics operating. It is nobody's choice. Even the Chinese leaders have no choice. They have to be aggressive because the very nature of China today is that it is expanding imperialism. It has to conquer other countries, but presently not militarily, but economically. So we have to realize this. Our leaders, I said repeatedly, must realize that no amount of discussions will Chinese will do. They will not agree to anything because they, by the very nature, the economic laws of capital, they have to be aggressive. And therefore, the only way out for us is to realize this and put up stout opposition. We should immediately ban all Chinese products in Indian markets. We should immediately expel Chinese companies from operating in India. I said that Indian government has signed some agreement for metro or some highway from Meerut to Delhi. What is all this? We should throw out all these Chinese. They are aggressors. They are Nazi. They are like Nazis.
Yes. Okay.
You are, by appeasing them, you will only be behaving like Neville Chamberlain. You will be whetting the appetite of an aggressor. Please realize this. There are certain iron laws of economics which are operating. And the Chinese will continue expanding unless India and other countries realize this and put up stout opposition.
Yes, sir. We'll come back to
just like then Churchill realized the danger. Neville Chamberlain thought that by discussing with Hitler, I will solve the problem. You can't solve the problem by negotiation, by diplomacy, by talking to the Chinese. They are aggressive.
Okay, sir. We will just come back to
they also have no choice in the matter.
Chances of resolution. We'll come back. Abhijit ji, why do you think this escalation or these disturbances had happened at this particular time? Do you see any?
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Put your mouthpiece near your face. I
yes,
can't
sir.
hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. He can hear you. Yes.
So why is it happening now? Well, look, it's a lot of things coming together. One, like I said, is the COVID thing.
I can't hear you. I can't hear.
The need to divert attention. Second is the infrastructure building. Third, I'm sure that this revocation of the abrogation of Article 370 has played some small role in it, at least in the Chinese mind. But also remember, fourth, they've never actually needed a reason. They've been doing the exact same thing even before. So there's nothing new in what they're doing. It's exactly what Justice Katju just said, which is that, when a power grows, and see, there's a very dangerous part when you grow. There is the lower to middle income trap, where it is cheaper to go abroad and acquire assets at a lower rate than when you transition to a high income economy where colonialization no longer makes sense. You see, Britain, France, America, they never decolonialized because of the goodness of their heart. They decolonialized because it never made economic sense, because their population was so high, the amount they were expending on controlling a colony simply did not make economic sense, which is why they decolonized. It's the same reason the northern states of America went to war with the southern states, is because they didn't need slavery. An industrial economy did not need slavery, but it needed man force and workforce, which wasn't being allowed by the South because of slavery to come north. So, you have a lot of anthropological reasons for why this is happening. China today is in that same sort of production and income bracket in real terms that Japan was at the beginning of the Second World War. And if you remember out there, what was Japan's problem? It was resource constraint. They needed to go acquire petroleum. They needed to break the American trade blockade and things like that. So they had to invade Indonesia. And in order to invade Indonesia, they had to neutralize the American fleet, which is why they went and attacked Pearl Harbor and things like that. So it's a whole load of things. Of course, in the case of India, they've been emboldened by their past experience with us. There was this very curious Kennedy, when the 1962 war broke out, in one of his notes, internal White House notes, Kennedy writes that, Pandit Nehru's been taking slap after slap by the Chinese, and yet he pretend it's never happened. And this, unfortunately, is the Indian reaction since the 1950s. It still hasn't changed. We have taken slap after slap after slap. I mean, how many slaps do you want? Even today, after at least 20, the number is going to rise quite sharply, but at least 20 of our troops have been killed. We're still pretending that nothing's happened. We should be non-aligned. In fact, the gall of it all, today there was the former National Security Advisor, M.K. Narayan, has written a piece in the Hindu, the headline piece in the Hindu, in fact, in the opinion column, saying non-alignment must not be discarded. You have somebody coming and killing your troops. How are you still saying non-aligned? Articles like this do exactly what Justice Katju said, which is that they embolden the enemy, saying these guys are useless. Ye joker log hain. We should keep doing these things to them because they are never going to react. And that is what happens, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. So coming back to you, Justice Sir, what do you think? Do you think this incident has an implication with the Article 370 abrogation or the abrogation of special status in Kashmir? or does this have any direct relation with the situations at Kashmir? What are your views, sir?
See, you please read my article, The Danger of Chinese Imperialism, published in the portal indicanews.com. I'm repeating, my article, The Danger of Chinese Imperialism, published in the portal indicanews.com, and another article, The Chinese Are the Nazis, published in theweek.in. I have explained everything there. You please understand that there are certain iron laws of economics which are operating. Nobody has a choice in the matter. When, for example, why do you think England conquered India? Do you think they wanted to have a picnic in India? They were not happy. The weather was too hot for them. But they came because when their industrialization had developed to a certain level, thereafter they had to seek foreign markets and foreign raw materials and cheap labor and so on. There are certain economic laws which operate. So similarly, Chinese have to expand because they have built up a massive industry and they have a huge $3.2 trillion foreign exchange reserve, hungrily looking like wolves for avenues for investment. So you have to realize this. Please don't think that by reasoning with them or by any other such method, you will be able to resolve the problem. You have to realize that the only way to deal with the Chinese is confronting them.
And so specifically
and
about
along with
Ladakh,
other countries, you have to unite with all other countries to face the Chinese danger, because Chinese are the danger to the whole world.
yes, sir.
Even
Specifically
they are a
about
danger
Ladakh,
to the United
sir.
States.
So do you think there is a solution militarily? Do you think there is a solution militarily or by any diplomatic means? Can we resolve this issue in Ladakh particularly? Do you think so?
No, not militarily. Militarily, of course, we have to face them, but we should expel them from India. All the Chinese companies must be immediately expelled from India. No Chinese product should be allowed to enter India. Because you know what the Chinese have been doing. I've written an article on this. That in fact, all these facts are also mentioned in my article, The Danger of Chinese Imperialism. That the Chinese have entered the Indian market and captured a large part of it. Like for example, the telecom sector and all, they have captured more than 50% of the Indian market. And in many other sectors, they have entered. In Pakistan, they have almost captured the whole Pakistani economy. The present Chinese are imperialists. They only call themselves communists, but they are in fact imperialists. Like hungry wolves, they want to devour other countries. We have to realize this, and all countries must unite and confront the Chinese. Just like Hitler was confronted by many countries of the world, they united against Hitler, like Russia, America, Britain. Yes. And so on. They had to unite, and then only they could defeat Hitler. So similarly, unless we all countries unite, we cannot defeat the Chinese. They have become highly industrialized and highly aggressive. So we have to know this and stop thinking that you by trying to persuade them and trying to reason with them, you will be able to stop their imperialist design. No, you have to confront them. No amount of talks or negotiations or diplomacy will do.
Okay. And coming back to you, Abhijit ji, what do you think about the response of government? I have seen and I have felt like there is no specific notification or specific response from the top authorities in the government. What do you think? How had this Indian army and Indian government taken this issue, and how are they dealing? What do you think?
Look, ultimately, we've got a disciplined army. They listen to the political leadership. The problem here is that we're going down the same path. It's what Justice Katju said, it's appeasement. It's what Neville Chamberlain did in Munich. Okay, you need to stand firm and say, no, this will not be tolerated no further. And we don't seem to want to do that. And see, that becomes highly problematic because you're basically encouraging bad behavior. You know what? I have always told, I say this not as a joke, I'm very serious when I say this, that every politician or everybody who works in security or in government needs to have a dog and do a dog training course. Because you learn the rudimentary effects of carrots and sticks by training up a dog. Have you noticed when a dog runs away in the park, when you're taking it for a walk, when the dog comes back, the owner or the walker will give it a slap. And the message that goes to the dog is, I'm going to slap you if you come back. Okay, you never do that. When the dog comes back, it doesn't matter what the dog has done. You say, "Acha bacha, bahut acha kiya, ye lo carrot." Okay, but the moment that dog growls at some other dog, then you slap it and say no immediately when the mistake is being done. We don't get this. See, we don't get this at the state level. We don't get this at the theoretical level. We don't get it in internal security as well. We keep, we keep rewarding people who get violent, on everything, on freedom of speech. All you need to do to jail somebody is have a violent protest, and then they'll say, see, you bhadkao, fight them, therefore you go to jail. In China, it's, you're behaving very badly, so we'll treat you carefully, means we'll treat you well. Okay. If you go to the American National Day and Chinese National Day, to the Chinese National Day, you'll see 6-7 ministers, the vice president, whatnot, rock up. You go to American National Day, you'll hardly see one minister rock up, if at all that. Okay, we've got this tendency, I don't know what it is, but in India, I've always held, it's probably because of the caste system, that we treat people who treat us well very, very badly, and we treat people who ill-treat you as with great respect. Okay, which is probably why rich people in India tend to be extremely ill-mannered and why the poor people tend to be very kind and gentle. I'm generalizing, of course, but it's generally quite the rule out here. I think it's a culture.
Let me just add a question. Like, do you think there is any Pakistan influence in these Chinese games or Chinese disturbances? What do you think about that?
No. See, I think we need to be very clear where Pakistan influences China and where Pakistan does not influence China. When, in between 2004 to about 2011, there was a very serious conversation happening in the Chinese Politburo and the security leadership in China. What are we going to do with Pakistan? Because they're a zoo of terror. It doesn't matter what sect of Islam you come from, as long as you're willing to do terrorism or something like that, they'll give you a place and things like that and set you up. And the belief was that it was bad for China. In 2011, that debate ended. They said, look, we will look after terrorism internally, which is what all the concentration camps for Uyghurs are. And they said Pakistan is too valuable a tool to destabilize America and Afghanistan and to destabilize India. So we will maintain Pakistan as it is.
Okay.
Today, they're trying social engineering through the CPEC, $93 billion worth of investment in the belief that they can industrialize Pakistan. It's not going to work because Pakistan is also resisting that. This is number one. Okay, they need Pakistan and they use Pakistan. Now, remember, Pakistan is just like India. You've seen the kind of accusations they put against America, national pride and all of that. Where does the national pride go when China is involved? They accuse America of betrayal in 71 and whatnot. The Chinese said they would come and support you in 1971, but they never did. But Pakistan never accuses China of betrayal. Okay. You see? So the second thing is, in Nepal, there is definitely a Pakistani hand in what is happening. The Chinese ambassador out there, she's an Urdu specialist. She's a known liaison with Pakistani intelligence.
All right.
And so
just
that's...
Sir, if you want to add something to Abhijit told, please. Sir, yes, sir. Katju, sir? Yes, tell me, sir.
See, one thing which may kindly be considered by Abhijit, which I don't know whether he has considered. Why are the Chinese in Ladakh? Do you think they're having a picnic there, or it is a very pleasant place, picturesque place? No. You see, that mountainous area is full of minerals. Please understand, For example, Tibet has massive minerals. These hilly areas may appear to be very barren, but in fact they have tremendous amount of natural wealth in the form of minerals. Tibet has huge mineral wealth, and Ladakh also has huge mineral wealth. So because the Chinese industry is expanding, it's as I said, expanding imperialism. They have to capture more raw materials and markets. So raw materials are in these hilly areas. This is why they want to, they have entered Ladakh. Not because of the heck of it, not because they are having a picnic there,
Exactly,
or not
sir,
because some
exactly.
people say, oh, they don't want to lose face. This is not so. Please understand the laws of economics. The expanding imperialism must get more raw materials, more markets. So it is because this Ladakh, these hilly areas, Ladakh and all are full of minerals, very valuable minerals. That is why the Chinese want to capture it.
All right, sir. All right.
Please, this must be understood. I mean, if you want to understand politics, you must understand economics.
Exactly.
Because politics is concentrated economics. Unless you understand economics, you will not be able to understand. You will just go by a superficial understanding.
Yes, sir. So if we are about to conclude this, sir, Justice, sir, can you please say what do you have to say to the people of India at this crisis time, whether they have to specifically or critically analyze the government interventions, or they have to just stand blindly with the government supporting their initiative as a nation? What do you have a message to say the people of our country, sir? Sir, can you hear me, sir? Katju, sir? Hello?
Are you asking me or are you
Yes, sir,
asking
I'm asking
Abhijit?
you, sir. I'm asking you, and later I'll conclude with him.
Well, I've already told you that we must form a united front with other countries against China.
Okay.
We must form a worldwide economic front against China, because Chinese are trying to penetrate all countries in the world. They have penetrated Africa, they have penetrated South America, of course, Asia. Pakistan is full of Chinese goods. So they are, like wolves attacking the whole world. So we have to unite and form a united front against the Chinese to stop their aggression and imperialism. Otherwise, like Hitler, who was on the run, he almost conquered the whole world. We have to stop this and
Yes, sir.
realize the danger which the whole world
Yes.
is
So to
because of
summarize,
Chinese imperialism.
Justice sir is proposing for a united front against China. Abhijit ji, it's time for me to conclude this short session. So I would like to conclude with a closing remarks from you. What do you have to say to the general public of our country, and what do you think about the people should stand? How should they stand?
Look, the history of India is a history of policy failure. It doesn't matter what government comes, we just see compounded failure because, like Justice Katju says, nobody in this country understands economics. Electoral politics overtakes economics. Okay, till we get our economics right, we can't get our foreign policy right, and till we get our economics right, we can't get our defense policy right. So, unfortunately, we're just going to keep going on like this, stuttering along, just in a bare state of existence. अपनी सोच विचार बढ़ाओ, अपनी सोच विचार expand करो, because this kind of subsistence level economics that we practice out here without any big dreams, without lots of slogans but no actions on the ground, we're not going to go anywhere with it. This is just going to keep happening.
All right. So with that note, I would like to conclude this very quickly arranged session. This was a suddenly arranged session, and thank you so much, my respected Justice Sir and dear Abhijit ji, for getting in touch with this suddenly planned session and expressing your views.